we have, and they won't talk, I promise. The yoga teacher, trainees back there observing, for their hours on the foundations, because it's such a huge part of becoming a yoga teacher. And then Shauna is a yoga teacher here, as some of you know. And again, it's like as a yoga teacher, you can never get enough of this kind of stuff, because when you start teaching all the time, you get into, just like anything else, you get into kind of like a flow, and maybe sometimes you feel like you're in a rut a little bit, so it's good to refresh and start from the beginning. And for me, that's always the reminder with my own personal practice and with teaching, is to start from the beginning. Any injuries that I've had, which we're going to talk about, I know some of you have some things going on. So any injuries that I've had, I've used my yoga practice to help me heal, as well as massage therapy, acupuncture, chiropractic, nutritional things, and I always have recovered very well from any injury that I've endured over the years, which has been many. So we're going to talk about that. I think I was waiting. I don't ever plan my classes because I have to wait to see who's in front of me, and the energy that comes into the room, and kind of like the concept of the class that arises. And I feel like, just from some of the conversations that I had with you coming in, that there are some body, issues that we want to talk, like, injuries and how to work with them in any class. So it's a foundation class, so you can ask me anything. It's a workshop, so I really want you to feel open to ask me any questions as we move through different postures and we talk about different things. And I'm going to try to touch on as much as possible, so it's like very detailed into the postures that we'll work through, which you don't normally hear in a regular yoga class. Like, what do certain things mean? How do you actually, engage your core? What does it mean to square your hips? What should I be feeling when I'm in down dog, or whatever it is? And then working with whatever injury or recovery that you have going on, old injury, chronic pain, you name it, I'm sure that it exists in this room. Right? With all of us, I think like everybody can agree. Even Marie, who's in yoga teacher training, she came in and she said your knee?
My low back.
Your low back is hurting, yeah. So, and then Shauna,
Lower back.
Yeah.
Hip area.
Yep. So, that's kind of the stuff that I want to touch on and talk about, and so that way when you go into a class, you feel really comfortable working within your own practice. Even hearing those words, like, just work within your own practice today. You're like, what does that even mean, right? How do I work within my own practice? And, part of it is obviously letting go of the ego and looking a certain way. We're like bombarded by yoga journal pictures and yoga pictures everywhere. If you're on social media, it's kind of ridiculous at this point in time. A lot of it has gotten away from, the meaning of traditional yoga and what we're actually supposed to be doing with our bodies. So, it has nothing to do with anybody that's around us. We're supposed to be developing a truthful relationship with our bodies in order to heal mind, body, spirit, our emotional state, our mental. It works on all levels in order to prepare our minds to sit for meditation. That's actually the purpose of the yoga. But in the physical practice, so many things happen. So I'll start with me just sharing with one of my injuries that I have. So last July, I had a really, really bad fall, mindless fall, playing with my kids. And so I have a more than 50% tear of my rotator cuff. And I couldn't move my arm for 3 weeks. And I waited 3 months to go to the doctor to get an MRI. I was like, it's going to be fine. I'll just do yoga. And, I went back to do a massage. I don't even know how I did massages or anything like that. But I did. You force your way through. We're all women here. We know what that is. We're like, it's probably fine. If I go to the doctor, they're just going to tell me it's fine. But I couldn't sleep very well after 3 months. So I went and had an MRI, and he came back in. It's just like, I don't even know how you've been walking around for 3 months, because you know, the fibers, some of them aren't there anymore, they're retracted, there's a few barely hanging on, and you have more than 50% tear of your rotator cuff, the top muscle. And so, I don't know, coming up, you know, it'll be a year in July of very, very, very slowly reintroducing myself into my yoga practice and actually starting to teach again, because I had taken a couple of years off from teaching due to a shoulder injury where I fell again, you know, a few years ago. So, and other things, little changes in the studio, but it was due to like neck shoulder injury and then the rotator tear. So every injury, like I said, every injury that I've had over the past 15 years of practicing yoga, I've used yoga to help me heal. And has my practice changed? Yes, of course, and it's going to change. And it doesn't mean that you'll never get back to where you were. You might actually learn ways to get like beyond where you were into different postures that you never thought you'd be able to achieve, but that doesn't matter. The point is that, you know, you're just mindful of your body and you're integrating your injury into your being versus identifying with the pain, right? So that's another cool thing that yoga does for you, is it helps you make that mental shift of like, instead of complete identification with this rotator cuff tear, right? It's just part of who I am and I work with it, right? So like that actually even shifts the pain, the idea of the pain and how I feel the pain. So
You
instead
didn't
of
have no surgery on it?
I didn't. I was right on the cusp because I'm 39, and he said most people that have this are in their 50s or 60s and have to have surgery. But he said I was on the cusp, so I did 6 weeks of physical therapy, and then that just got really boring, and so I went back to my yoga practice, you know, and you know, was very mindful of how I worked. And even now, like with my yoga practice, I've noticed coming back to my chaturanga, right, where you're in your plank and you lower down almost all the way to the mat, like I'm not even feeling that much pain in my shoulder. Like the fact that I can do that is huge, yeah. Because it started from, like I said, like my arm just hung dead for a while. So, and this is not even a year into the healing. So yeah, because of my age, I was on the cusp. So he said, let's try physical therapy, and then we'll come back and revisit. And so the option to have surgery is open, but I think that it's doing just fine, yeah. So that's one of my injuries. So I just want to go around and kind of like have you guys talk about what is going on and just areas that you think that you might want to touch on today. You know, what brought you here today? My name is Jennifer, by the way. I don't even know if I said that. So we can introduce ourselves and just kind of touch on that. What brings you here? What do you have going on in your body? If there's chronic pain, if there's injury, whatever you feel comfortable sharing. So that way I know how to best use our time together today. So if anyone wants to go first, otherwise we can just go in a circle.
I'll go first.
Okay.
Morning, my name's Betty Ann, Elizabeth. But it says, when I take Shannon's class, she always calls me Elizabeth, because when I gave her my information, it says Elizabeth on my legal stuff and my cards and all that stuff, so that's why I put it down. So she started, I said, that sounds kind of nice. I think I'm going to be Elizabeth.
All right. So should I make that switch too? Do you want to be Elizabeth?
No, you can keep Betty Ann.
Okay.
She's got Elizabeth.
All right. Okay. Which also, you know, yoga touches on our multiple personalities.
I first started coming to yoga probably, I don't know, 2 years now. I did it for a while and then I didn't do it. The reason I came in the first place is because I was just emotionally a wreck. I just needed some peace, and I thought maybe I'd get here, and I was right. So I loved it. And then I don't know why I stopped coming. I don't know if it was summer or what, but Jennifer does my massages, so I come for that once a month, and I love it. You can get anything here that you want.
Oh boy.
Almost. But I always had a problem with my neck. I was a nurse for years, so my back's pretty straight. It's fine because I did the heavy work all the time. But my neck bothered me, and I love coming here. I love the massages. She's kept me good. I only come once a month. My neck state has been really good, and I like meditation. I like that part of it. The exercise is all right. I have to do that part too. No, but I could tell with my neck. My mobility now is much better than before I was doing it.
Yeah.
Like, I noticed it probably about a month ago. I went, oh my God, I can turn my neck a little better.
Well, and you took a little break from, like you said, you
Right.
took a break, and we
Exactly.
did some massage.
Right.
And then you
And then I
coming
decided,
back.
my granddaughter came, and she lives in Connecticut, and she was here for the weekend. She says, Graham, you're always talking about this yoga, let's go. I said, oh, all right. So it was like a Friday night, it was a 5:30 class. I said, I don't know about this, but we'll try it. So we went, and she loved it, and all of a sudden, the next week I was back.
Alright.
Yeah.
So that's the gentle power yoga class too, not an easy
Yeah.
class with Shannon, so good for you. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, is once you really like start to listen to your body, and you know, even that, like, how many of you have been practicing yoga on and off for a while?
Lately it's been on and off.
Well, like, how many of you have not practiced yoga ever? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, this is fantastic. All right. But you go through an ebb and flow. You'll see. You go through an ebb and flow. And it's like always something that you come back to in one way or another. And so I love that story because it's like when you do have stuff going on, you know, you kind of try different, hopefully, you know, like the alternative therapies, like massage and whatnot. And your body just really, it's not like a magic bullet, like, you know, nothing's gonna happen overnight. That's the thing with any of these holistic therapies, is that it is a practice. And so over time your body responds and your mind responds. I love that you came here originally for that, you know, the emotional piece. And that's where a lot of people start. I mean, I would say at least 50% of our students come with anxiety, and that's why they start a yoga practice. And then so many things happen from there. So you had your neck.
I did.
Okay.
My neck.
All right, who's next? Ida.
I came, I was dealing with water chronic pain.
This is Ida.
Ida. I came here almost 3 years ago, and I came with a lot of chronic pain. I was on opioid medication. I was slowly getting off of it, and now I'm off of it. And I've had the same issue where I've been coming choppy for the past, I don't know, 6 months, 8 months. And now I'm trying to get really back into it, but this has been my actual drug. My bones feel better, my muscles have gotten better, and when I don't come, I know it. I mean, I do work at home, you know, yoga, but it's not like coming to a class. It just isn't. You just don't, you get the push from a class that you don't push yourself at home.
Yeah.
You know, you stretch, but you just don't get that extra. And I just love this place. I love it. You know, it's
The accountability from practicing with a group, you know, that's why we show up, even if you've been practicing for 20 or 30 years or whatever it is. It's like go to class. It's just like anything else. You
and
go.
I learned to meditate here, which really, I never thought I could do it.
Yeah.
And it does if you can just clear your head and let go of all the craziness that's moving around. I used to lay in bed and clean a closet. Organize the closet, and I get up the next morning, I said, oh God, I organized that closet, I don't have to do it today. But I did it last night in my head. My husband said, you did? I said, yeah, I can't do it today because I just worked so hard on it last night.
In your mind. So talk a little bit about your shoulder.
Well, I've actually had 7 surgeries on my arm, neurosurgeries all the way up to my shoulder. I did 2 surgeries in my shoulder, rotator cuff, and I tore my labrum, which has caused pain to go right up into my neck and then burning in the back of my head, which has now gotten down to minimal. And I meditate, I calm it down. My arms have gotten so weak, but therapy, which they kind of like make you really work it and gives you more pain. Coming here, I can stretch the muscle, and the muscle likes it because I'm not, going back and forth, I'm not pushing it that way. I'm just relaxing it, stretching it, and then relaxing, and it works.
So it's a stretch and a strengthen kind of simultaneously.
Right, exactly, and
Yeah.
I feel better when I leave. I feel refreshed. I feel like I'm ready to go, instead of like leaving and I'm like, oh my God, this is gonna kill me, and I know I can start feeling the pain when you leave physical therapy. When the doctor says, you wanna go to physical therapy, I go, oh, no.
But it did take, a little while to get to that place.
It
so,
does,
yeah.
it does. It takes a little while, and I used to come a lot.
Mhm.
I used to come like 3-4 times a week, and I enjoyed that. And, if maybe I'm trying to get at least 2, but I would like to get in here more.
Yeah, and a good place to start is 1 to 2 times a week. And if you can add to that, that's great. If 2 times is kind of like a sweet spot,
Yeah.
but if you can do 1.
At least 2 times,
Yeah.
will really help you.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if you do a gentle class once a week, that's fine. If you want to do the gentle power yoga, or whatever class you choose is okay, because
And if you can't do something and it's really hard, get down and do a child pose. Just relax. If you can't
Right.
do it and your body's starting to say I can't do it, just get down, do your child pose. I've seen many girls do that.
Which
I've
is
gone to
why
our
we're here.
classes. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, all
It's
right,
just-
who wants to go next? Thank you, Ida. Yep.
I'm Leah, nice to meet you all.
Hi.
I came just 4 weeks ago. I just started. I am just about 2 months out from having a laminectomy discectomy that started back in October, and they didn't have me go in for surgery, or I wasn't referred to a surgeon until beginning of February. Physical therapy, epidural injection, so I'm still, I guess, kind of in recovery. And the reason that I came is, I'm realizing now kind of threefold. One, to get stronger, to not re-herniate. Also, maybe to kind of start losing some weight. And then also I noticed the past 4 weeks that I've been taking a class with Shannon on
Yeah.
Friday nights. And I'm looking forward to it because with my job, I'm at a desk all day, but I'm also up and down. It's construction industry, so it can get really, stressful. And by the end of the week, I'm looking forward to just kind of releasing everything. And I found over the past 4 weeks that that's what's been happening. However, you said Shannon's class is a little difficult. I haven't found it too much, but I haven't moved in 6 months. So yeah.
Yeah.
And last night, she had us do like a squatting pose.
Yep.
And then to get back, like, to sit like this, I went right over. I fell backwards. So I had been looking for a beginner's class,
Yeah.
to kind of get moving and loose again. And when I saw that you were having this, I thought, oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Because I don't really understand the practice of yoga.
Yeah.
I'm looking around myself at what other people are doing, and
Yeah.
and I've really enjoyed coming here, and I definitely see myself continuing.
Awesome. So where on your spine? You said it's a disc?
Lower,
Okay.
Yeah,
Lumbar. Okay.
3 and 4, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, so
All
lower
right.
back. So I was out of work for 3 months.
So you've had the surgery?
I've already had the surgery
Okay,
in
all right.
February.
Awesome.
So on the road,
Good
pain
for
free.
you. Yeah, that's so good. That's good that you're here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, everybody wants to. We'll go with
Karen.
Karen, yes.
I've been coming to the studio sporadically for about 1.5 years. Fall seems to be when I rev back up and get into class, and then we'll go away for vacation in the winter. And then coming back into the rhythm, I have to start that again, and that was what was going to happen this spring. I've taken great classes, Shauna and Kelsey and Lisa, restorative, And I had every good intention when I got back, and then I started having knee issues that still haven't been, it's possible that I would have a knee replacement, or maybe it's a torn meniscus, so I'm in that pain area of trying to find out. But I really love your studio and the teachers, and I'm really missing it. I mean, I hadn't realized how much I enjoy coming. I knew I enjoyed it when I was here, but I'm just missing the whole sense of practicing. So I wanted to come today to see what I can do until I get more information about where I'm going with my knee, and just learn how to modify if I can, so that I can come back to classes and do something one way or the other. The restorative class is just an amazing class on Sunday nights. And Sunday nights is perfect, especially if you're gonna go back to work on Monday, because the level of relaxation just by holding those poses longer and the props and everything, I found that the meditation part for me, which I get in all the classes, is much deeper, and I've ended up dealing with issues I didn't even know I needed to deal with, because I got to that state and they just kind of came to me while I was in those poses. And that's another thing that I love about yoga, is that you get that chance to be totally quiet and go within yourself with the breathing, and it's, so anyway, that's why I'm here, because I miss it, and I want to be back.
Yeah, you do end up missing it. And so you're in an interesting spot because you're trying to figure out what's going on. So there's that, when we're in that place of uncertainty and the unknown, sometimes that can really take over. And so I applaud you for being here and for wanting to continue, because it's really easy to like kind of give up when you're in that spot. And you're like, I'll get back to it once I figure out what's wrong. But as we know, sometimes that figuring out process can take a very long time. So it's good to continue the practice, you know, wherever you can, because it is so much about the mind. And so that's another thing to touch on, is how yoga works is we have these lines. I don't know if you've ever seen like an acupuncture chart, or just an energy, like anything with acupuncture, or the meridians, or the chakras, right? Our energetic body, which lies like within our body and around our body, our electromagnetic field. When we practice yoga, those postures are specific to opening these lines of energy, and our cells hold on to every single memory we've ever had, since maybe even in the womb, and then our DNA is part of it, so there could be stuff, even like memories from our ancestors and different things like that. So it's interesting when you get into the meditative state and the things that you process through that you're like, I didn't even know this was a thing, and the practice helps to release that, and you kind of get into a state because you force your body into the relaxation state, that you don't need to know why it's happening, but like, you know, spontaneous healing can happen in any moment during a yoga practice. So if you find yourself crying in Shavasana or deep relaxation, you're not alone in that. It happens to, can you all attest to that back there?
Oh, yeah.
Right? And in our thinking mind, if we were just laying down at night to go to bed and we started crying, we'd be like, why is this happening? But in yoga, and we might still say, I wonder why this is happening, but there's more of a tendency to just know that it's like a release, and we're healing from something. And there is like that whole thing that happens throughout the lifetime of a practice as well, which is pretty cool. So thank you for that. Who's next?
I'm Susan. I came to one class here once with my friend, and I've had like a couple of classes, but I never felt comfortable because I have a right knee replacement, and I I'm sure I'm gonna have to have a left knee replacement, so I couldn't do the poses and, you know, when they get down, and I just felt so conscious. And when I go on the website and I look at all the classes, I have no clue which class would fit me best. So I'm kind of,
So it's overwhelming.
yeah,
So-
yeah, because I go every now and then, I'll say, well, I wonder if that one would be all right for me, you know, and when there's like no front desk here to ask anybody, it's kind of intimidating. You know, you
Yeah.
come up the stairs and the door is closed, and you say, well, I don't. So,
I never thought of that as a form of intimidation, but that's good
yeah,
feedback.
so you walk out and say, well, maybe I'll call.
Yeah.
But that's, so
Yeah.
hopefully, I would like to, because I got a lot of things going on up here.
Yeah.
And sleep is a problem, you know, again, you wake up in the middle of the night, 3 o'clock, and you start cleaning closets and everything else in your head,
Yeah.
so.
And there are ways, you know, there are different, so how many of you in here wake up between 1 and 4 a.m.? Okay. All right, so that's like usually a hormonal thing, because that's when our endocrine system starts to work its stuff out. And so yoga helps with that.
And I'm newly retired, so I can come to, you know, more or less classes whenever.
That's good.
When I
And
find
that's
one
a
that-
whole different place to be too. We have many students that are newly retired that are like, I don't know, like I'm happy to be retired, but I don't know what to do with myself a little bit. So, yeah, thank you.
I'm Nicole. I am never practiced yoga a day in my life. I'm an avid runner and skier. I'm an ER nurse of 22 years. And I actually sustained my very first back injury in December. So for me it's super rough because running is my outlet. So I have on the brusque of having to have surgery, but instead I've gone the opposite route. I'm using acupuncture, and Kayla's actually what prompted me to come today because she's doing my polarity treatment.
Awesome. Yeah.
So I am like this all the time. And it's really just been,
Yeah.
yeah, I meditate daily. I've always had that's been the other part of my practice, but running has been my yoga. And so to not run 3 to 5 miles a day, for me it's been like, oh, but now I'm not working, I sit at home.
Yeah.
And so I do acupuncture twice a week. And Kayla's the one that said, you need to come tomorrow.
Awesome.
So that's right.
So where is the injury?
L3, L4, and L5, so all 3.
Oh, I so relate to you. I just went through that whole thing. Oh.
Okay.
So again, I'm 42, super healthy. Always thought I could do it, but nope, I run like I have run my whole life. So never really got into it. Not really quite sure if I can do it.
Yeah.
But something's, as I said, my back became a problem for a reason.
Of course. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and Kayla's worked with me a lot, and she's been really great.
That's awesome.
So,
And one of our teachers, Inga, if you could ever come to a Monday or a Thursday morning class, she is an avid runner who has sustained some injuries within the past year. She's back to running now, but I know she went through a similar,
good to know.
yeah, like a Sunday morning fun thing for her is 9 miles. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly.
Like that just blows my mind. But
Like the trees are just getting to the point where you just want to be out running in the morning. And,
yeah.
yeah.
So she would be great, you know, if you could,
Good to know.
if you, when you feel comfortable going to one of her classes, she'd be great to talk to about it, because she can relate. So that's the other thing that's, you know, nice to talk to you teachers. We've all had, I mean, Shauna, do you wanna talk a little bit about your pain? I know, totally spotlight on Shauna. Sorry.
No, I don't mind the spotlight, bring it
Okay.
on. So I've had issues with my knee. My name is Shauna, by the way. I teach 4 classes a week here. I've had an issue with my knee, which really has never been a problem for me in yoga until just yesterday morning when I was teaching a class. It kind of popped on me. But I've had an issue in my lower back near my hip, groin area, this whole area. They thought it was my SI joint, but it's not. I have lost a considerable amount of flexibility in my lower back when I'm sitting. So I used to pride myself in being able to forward fold over my leg and interlace my hands below my feet, and I can't do that anymore. And it's very frustrating. besides that, what I've taken from it is when I'm teaching, I really listen to my body. And this has given me the opportunity to remind the students in my classes to pay attention to their body. So as I'm feeling things, I'm telling them about it. I'm not telling them, oh, this is what I'm feeling in my body. I say to them, hey, be mindful of your hips, be mindful of your lower back, notice this, notice that, because I've started to feel it in my body. And this is the most pain I've ever had in my life. And it's frustrating, very frustrating. But I keep to my practice, mainly here. I'm not gonna lie, I don't do a lot at home on my own, but I do it here. And meditation is so helpful. I loved what everyone has said, especially Karen, your awarenesses and your restorative. That is just wonderful. So I learned the hard way, but it's really important to listen to your body. Really, really important. So welcome to the new people that are here.
Great teacher, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm Gisela. It was not true, I haven't taken yoga, but I took yoga like probably 6 years ago as a non-credit class, one of those.
Yep.
Fun, interesting. I've never done it since. I started doing a lot of exercising. So I'm doing kickboxing and I'm gonna do a Spartan race. And I feel like I'm very tense, I'm gonna count it. So yeah, I've been trying to do a lot of massages, and even she's been saying like, my God, muscles don't relax. So she said, try yoga, and a few other people have said it, because I'm just trying to relax the muscles and kind of like have them just not be so tight. I have issues like with my knees, so that has been constant issue since I was young, as far as exercising. So trying to get that stronger into the core, and then shoulders and lower back.
Okay. Thank you. All right, anything else? And now I'm just trying to go through what I just learned. So let's just start with some seated postures. And like I said before, as we work through, I'll probably be asking you questions, or, we're gonna spend a decent amount of time in each thing that we do so we can get a feel for, like, how you can get a feel for how what's going on in each posture and make adjustments. Like, so I want you to think about, like, when you're in a class and you're in a posture, what are you thinking? Like, I don't know how to make myself comfortable, or what could I do here? What adjustments could I make to, like, still kind of be in the posture, but to not feel as much pain? So in yoga, we don't create pain. You should never create pain with a posture. If you have chronic pain, that's another thing. You kind of work within that and you don't make it worse. And so when you're in a posture and you start to feel pain, then you want to back off to the point where you're like right on the edge. Maybe there's some discomfort, but there's no pain. And I know that some students actually have a hard time differentiating what that means, because a lot of us have a tendency to go into pain, we're like that no pain, no gain society. Just throw that out, because that doesn't work here at all. It's really working just within, that's what working within your own practice means, is learning to really listen to your body, and then working through whatever practice is being given to you, but also taking the steps, like Ida said, if you need to go into a child's pose, or you want to do a cat-cow, or whatever you need to do to restore yourself from something that may have challenged you. You brought yourself to this point and you feel like you can't push yourself to the next challenging point, but you need a break. Like, when do you do that? When do you know to push yourself a little bit harder? So those kinds of things I want you to start to think about as we move through today. So we're just going to start with our legs straight out in front of us and see how that feels. So Betty Ann, I'm going to have you come off the bolster.
Okay.
Yep. So this is staff pose, when we come with our legs straight out in front. I'm just going to have you take your hands down by your sides and relax your legs. So this is kind of just a more gentle staff pose. And now just start to flex your feet back and lengthen the spine. So we're sitting up tall, we're making an L shape with our body, that's full expression of our staff pose. and just kind of see how that feels. Lean forward a little bit. Good, and then lean back. Lean back just enough so you feel your core engage. Good, lean forward. Drop the shoulders if you can, look at your toes. Good, and then lean back, start to find your core again. And now let's come back to neutral. So finding neutral. Now relax your legs and see if you can lengthen up. Those of you that are kind of either leaning back or you're finding that your shoulders are rolling forward. Bend your legs as much as you need to find your posture. Good. How's that feeling so far? Yeah, there we go. So bend your legs a little bit. Oh, good. Do you feel the difference in that in your back? Okay. So this is your starting point. Good. So bend your knees a little bit. Good. There we go. Those hamstrings, right? They're ultra tight. Good. Good. That looks good. And if I'm adjusting you and you know it kind of scares you a little bit, just tell me because I don't want to push you anywhere that you can't go. Knees feel okay here? Okay, can you pull your shoulders back towards me? Awesome. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right. So, if you have tight hips, if you have tight hamstrings, then this can be a challenge. It looks simple to the outside, if you're just looking at it. Okay, so everybody has their posture right now. So maintain your upper body and see where you can take your legs. Can you straighten them out a little bit more without changing anything in your upper body? How does that feel?
My arms are too short.
It's usually all relative, but that's normal to feel at first. Yes, until we start to lengthen stuff out. Okay, and now, so if your legs are a little bit straighter, see how it feels to flex your feet. So you pull your toes back towards your hips. Yeah, just a little bit, right? All right, so you're starting to lean back a little bit. How are we feeling in the knees though, my knee people? I didn't adjust you, did I? So bend your legs a little bit more. Good. Yeah, there you go. Now hold your upper body here. Great. And then work from that point. So feet are flexed. Good. All right, now bend your knees and go ahead and just fold over your legs. So just let your upper body drop over your legs. Drop your head. Don't worry about flat back. And if you want to straighten your legs out a little more, you can. And sometimes it feels nice if you can reach and tuck your hands with your palms down under your calves. That feels kind of good. Can you straighten your legs out a little more, Betty Ann, or is it too tight? Does it feel better to have them bent? Okay, yeah, and that's okay. So this is really good, actually. So anybody with the back, Marie, how is this feeling below back?
Good.
It feels good.
Yes.
And you're feeling pain. Okay. So find the place and let's observe. What's your name? I'm sorry.
Nicole.
Nicole. Where is the place where you're not feeling pain? Right there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. Can you be right here and drop your chin down toward your chest? Does that create any pain?
No, it's just tight.
Okay. Can you drop a little bit more forward? I want you to find a place where it's just a little bit of discomfort. And you're breathing. So we're all breathing in and out through the nose. Yoga breath, usually on the inhale, you feel your belly fill. So does what happened?
Yeah.
Okay, so don't do that though, right? Don't come out of anything that fast, because then your muscles forget what you just did. All right, so on an inhale, I want you all to very slowly release back to where you were before and see if you can come back to your posture. So nice and straight. If you need to bend your knees, that's okay, but just find your flat back. Your hands down by your sides, shoulders drop down. Good. All right. Any questions? How does it feel if you flex your feet?
It felt fine.
It feels okay? All right, nothing in the knees?
No.
All right, awesome. Who is able to go onto hands and knees into table? Give it a try. Yeah, let's see. So come on to hands and knees, just like this, yeah. So you're always allowed, whenever you come into your hip, so Ida has this little mat here, which is great, this little cushion. You can always grab a pillow. I like to roll my mat. Sometimes when I go on my knees and my knees bug me, I roll my mat like that so I have a little more cushion underneath. So you can take the time to make adjustments when you're on your hands and knees. And we're gonna start to move through the spine. So I wanna see how this feels for you. Does anybody need anything under their knees? And does that bolster feel like it's too much? Would you rather have a pillow?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. And if the bolster does feel good, you come back to it, but
Okay.
we'll try to keep you as low as we can. So just alignment here. We wanna have our knees hip width apart. Right under the hips. Good, you guys, you did pretty good there. Usually people take their knees out too wide and I say that your hips aren't that wide. So you wanna be at a 90-degree angle. Is that okay for you?
Which is a nice thing to hear.
Yeah, it's the same thing when we come up to standing and you say stand hip width, everybody does this. It's like nobody's hips are as wide as we think. Okay, and now your wrists are typically under your shoulders and your fingers are spread wide with your middle fingers pointing straight ahead. If you have wrist problems, one of my favorite things that I learned now is to just move your hands to a place that your wrists feel comfortable. So you're gonna hear teachers tell you about alignment, but it's actually important to find where you're comfortable. So you might try that alignment for a second, and if it's causing you pain or discomfort, then make changes. So if your wrists bother, you can always come onto your fists as well. And if you need to, you can come down to your forearms. And you have a bolster, you could put the bolster under your hands. And we're just gonna move through the spine, so move really slow, close your eyes, and focus on your spine and just notice how it feels. So on your inhale, you're gonna drop your belly down toward the mat, so very slow, and lift your head. Good, so all slow movements. Exhale, start to tuck your tailbone and round your back like a cat. Good, head drops down last. And if you can press into your hands a little bit here, great. Inhale, start to drop the belly, lift the head, and think about your spine like you're moving one vertebrae at a time. Good, and exhale. Rounding, tailbone to the top of the head. Good, how are my knee people doing?
Okay.
Inhale, good. Inhale, drop your belly, lift your head. And exhale, start to round your back. And let's come back to a neutral spine. And I'm actually gonna go through. So if you end up, some of the gentle classes, we do more cat-cows, right? It's just more of a gentle practice.
Yeah.
So sometimes your wrists or your knees will bother you. So I'm gonna have you come back to a seated position so I can show you how to do a seated cat-cow.
Can we do my fall again like I did last night? Everybody did last night.
Everybody falls
It was so funny.
in yoga. Alright, so there's a couple ways you could do your seated cat-cow. You can come back to your easy cross leg, and even when you're in your easy cross leg, especially my knee people, you can use blocks under your thighs, right? So you would set, can I borrow your blocks?
Sure.
You would set them up to the point where you feel that discomfort, and even hips, like if you have really tight hips, Betty Ann, this might be good for you, to use blocks, and you just push them in to where you feel like it's the perfect spot, right? So it's not giving you complete relief. You're still doing a little bit of work, but it's allowing you to sit more comfortably. And then over time, you get to move the block, not in one class, I'm talking like a year. So when I say over time, it's usually, you're looking at like 3-month increments in yoga. So that's how that's how I always say, come see me in a year. Because one class, I'll have some students say, I just don't know how I feel about it. I did one class and I don't know if it's for me. And I try to just say, do at least 6 weeks. At least 6 weeks. And then rejudge. And mostly everyone loves it after 6 weeks. Okay, so seated cat-cow, you can sit in your easy cross leg, or if you like to sit, or if you can sit back on your heels, I would encourage you to give this one a try, but if it's not available because of your knees, then don't do it. So when you're doing cat-cow a lot in class, and your wrists or your knees start to bother you, you either come into your easy cross leg, or you come here into hero, And you move the spine the same way. So on your inhale, you're going to find that little arch in your back, right? So start from the tailbone, top of the head, look up. And then on the exhale, you're gonna round your back. You're gonna slide your hands down your legs. And use your hands to pull yourself forward and back. Inhale, moving the spine, and exhale. Inhale. So Ida, instead of leaning forward and back, just try to use the spine. That's okay. So we're rounding the back, dropping the head. Inhale, you find length, that little arch in the back, looking up, and exhale. So any of my back people, this is fantastic to do at home for, 5 minutes. You can move through your cat-cows. It's really, really good to lubricate the spine and just find some flexibility and to help to heal scar for you, the scar tissue there, so you can help to start to loosen that up a little bit.
So it doesn't
Right.
happen.
Yeah, right, and a lot of that is gonna be the core,
That's what
right?
they were saying,
Yeah, so everything in yoga, most of our postures radiate out from the core. So is that good, those little options for cat-cow? It just helps to alleviate that pressure on knees and wrists if you're doing a lot of it in class. So that's an option. Let's come back to hands and knees, actually. And we're gonna start to work with the core a little bit. And if at any time this is too much on your wrists, come down to your forearms. And if it's too much on your knees, I'll have you come onto your back. So you can just decide that. And again, in that decision, it's when you're feeling a lot of discomfort but not pain. And sometimes you will move into pain because you're learning what your body is telling you, right? So this is it's all a practice of trying to figure stuff out. So for those of you way in the back, just make sure you have enough room behind you so you're not kicking the wall. There we go. I wasn't sure, Shauna.
Short
It looks
legs.
like you were just. All right, so finding a neutral spine. I want you to close your eyes and just see what that means for you. So when you're in your yoga practice, it's okay to move around. Don't feel like you have to stay static because your teacher says come into table. So when you come into table, you might move through a little cat-cow. So let me see you do a little bit of that cat-cow movement again. It's nice here to rock your hips from side to side, especially if you sit all day for your job or for whatever reason, maybe you drive a lot. It's nice to just rock those hips. You might roll your shoulders a little bit. You can always lift your hand and roll your wrists to get rid of some of that pressure. So when you rock your hips from side to side, a lot of our teachers do this movement, so let's talk about this for a little. So I'm gonna have you rock your hips over to the right side. And when you go to the right side, you wanna find the end stretch. So rock as far over to the right side until you feel like you can't, or if there's any discomfort, find the edge of that discomfort, good. And then on an inhale, make your way over to the other side, same thing, find the end of that stretch. And you might look over toward your right shoulder, good, and then come back to center. Now do that on your own and see where it takes you. Listen to your body. It always helps to close your eyes, to go within your body and see where your endpoints are. And then, of course, you're kind of checking in with your knees and your wrists, and you're making adjustments. Good. How's that feeling for you? Pretty good? Yeah? All right. Let's come back to center. Yes.
Is there a benefit to keeping the knees hip width apart or having them closer together? Because a lot of
That's a
times
good
I have knees
question.
together and we do that from side to side.
A lot of times I actually bring them out a little wider than hip width. Yeah, so give that a try. Take your knees out a little bit wider and rock them from side to side. And then try hip width, and then try knees together. So rock a couple times with each of those knee placement adjustments and see, thank you for that, what works best for you.
Really, I find it harder with the knees
With the
apart.
knees, yeah.
Yeah.
So it kind of just like all depends. I guess I'm maybe more of like just a hip width person versus knees to together or out wide. I don't know. So these are the things that you can play with during your class to see what works best for you. What's the consensus so far? Hip width?
Hip width.
Alright,
Yeah.
alright. If you need a break, roll your wrists, do what you need to do to alleviate that tension. And this is what you would do in your yoga class. Take a second, do what you need to do, and then come back to whatever you're doing in your class. So when you're ready, come back to hands and knees. And we're gonna start to work with feeling the core by extending our legs back out behind us. So, not at the same time. That's advanced. That's advanced levitation, yes. Alright, so we're just gonna take the left leg back behind us. So go ahead and straight back behind you. If you can keep it lifted, great. If it's too much to keep it lifted, lower it so your toes touch the floor. That's okay. Now see how it feels to flex that foot so your toes are pointing straight down. Yeah, there you go. There's your flex. And now we're going to pay attention to our hips. So see if you can drop this hip toward the mat a little more, even if the leg drops. All right, so I haven't had you engage your core yet, so things can feel maybe a little challenging. So now draw your navel back toward your spine. Think about lengthening your spine and keeping your abdomen strong. Okay, so what are you feeling right here? Are your arms feeling strong, or your wrist bothering you, or what?
No, they're not feeling,
So
they're not
can you
bothering me.
straighten
I'm
that right
starting
arm?
to feel
In your
pressure
knee.
on my knee, but
Okay,
it's not hurting.
so engage your core really strong, lift your head. Okay, good. And see if you can put a little more pressure on this arm. Keep it nice and strong, the foot is flexed, reach through that left heel as much as you can, like someone's pulling your foot back behind you. And if you can get a little more lift. See where your flexibility takes you. See if you can lift the leg a little more while keeping your hips square. And keep reaching through that heel. Head stays in line with the spine. Good. Engage the core again if you lost it. And feel the energy rising up through your hands into your shoulders. So it's nice and strong here. So again, a simple posture that becomes a little bit intense as you hold. Let's inhale. On your exhale, go ahead and drop that knee. Good. What do you need to do here to release any tension in the body? What movement would you make to help release tension? Whether it's in your knees or your wrists or your spine. Yeah. You might roll the wrists. You might come into child's pose. So it's all these little things that you can do each time. When you're ready, come back. So if you need to be on your forearms, come onto your forearms. That's okay. And then take the right leg back behind you. And in yoga, it's really important to make slow transitions. So the transitions are just important as the postures. If you can take a peek underneath you at your toes and make sure that they're pointing down toward the mat, that's a good way to see if your hips are square, if that's available to you. If not, it's okay. So again, engage that core. Find that strong core engagement. Shoulders are nice and strong. We're not sinking into the shoulders. You feel the energy come up through the hands, into the shoulders. Good, and breathe. See this, I would recommend this for you, being on the forearms, because your alignment is great. Does it feel better?
Yes.
Okay, good. And breathe. So breathing in and out through the nose, even though the core is engaged, we're still able to breathe. Let's inhale together, maybe find a little bit of a lift, slow lift. Good, and then exhale, go ahead and release. And then make those movements. Maybe you do a cat-cow, because this can build up some tension in the low back. So you might do your cat-cow, whether it's on hands and knees or seated. Another thing for your wrists that's really nice is if you take the backs of your hands together, right? Right, you're gonna feel some stretch, and then face them towards you, and then down, and now open and spin on the wrists. Right, and then you do that again,
Oh,
so
okay.
you roll in little lotus hands. So take the backs together.
Very important.
Yeah, backs together, and we're rolling on the wrists.
Oh,
So that's like heaven if you work on a computer a lot, to do the little lotus hands.
Backs together.
Backs together and then roll on the wrists. Yep. So in most classes, you'll come into a down dog, even the gentle classes, okay? So let's lift our hips, when you're ready to, lift our hips and come into our down dog. So you make the inverted V shape like this. Now I'm gonna be talking a lot, so when you need a break, just really set your knees down and take a break. All right, so yeah, how's this feeling on your back? Not so good. All right, okay.
That's okay.
It totally is okay. When you come into it, bend your knees.
Okay.
See how that feels. Find a deep bend in the knees. So it's okay if you're here and you need to find a deep bend in your knees. And you're trying to release your heels down toward the mat. Doesn't matter if they touch or not. And you can play around. Maybe your feet are out wide. Maybe they're hip width. And if you need to lift and lower, that's okay. You don't have to hold any posture if it's feeling uncomfortable. And then if you do lower and you need a break, you do your thing again. Maybe you need to roll your wrists, do your cat-cow, or just sit there and breathe. Could you walk your feet back a little bit? Maybe a little more. All right, how's that feeling?
Okay.
It feels okay. And then your shoulders, so you keep your arms bent a little bit. You look back towards your knees. Good. Let's inhale. On your exhale, slowly set your knees back down. So you want to do everything controlled, so you're building the strength to revisit this posture again, whether it's in the same class or another time. How did it feel with your knees bent?
Better.
A little bit
It's just
better?
super tight, yeah. My
Okay.
hands, everything's tight. My hands
Oh,
are tight,
yeah.
everything's so,
Okay.
I felt better.
Good.
Do it.
Awesome. So can you come back to it for me so I can see? And you can practice any of the movements that we just went through, but if you feel comfortable practicing your down dog, then I encourage you to inhale up and exhale down and start to work with that. And again, close your eyes so you can bring your focus in your body and listen to your body. It actually knows what adjustments to make. And maybe not all of them today, but it will teach you what you need. Okay. So knees are bent and you can't walk it back anymore, right? Try. Take your heels up. Come up on your toes. Like, okay, we don't want to cause you any pain. Or can you not come up on your toes? Okay. Does that feel okay? And keep your knees bent. Let your upper body do more of the work. Can you walk your hands up here? Keep your feet there. Keep walking towards me. Bend your knees a little more. Squeeze your core. Drop your head slowly. Drop it. How does that feel? Okay, take a breath. And then set your knees down when you need to. And then go through that process of lifting and lowering.
Okay.
When you lift, try it on an inhale with a strong core. So that way it's almost like your belly button is lifting you back. Good. And just finding that connection with breath and movement. So Betty Ann, how does it feel if you drop your head?
Okay.
Good, and lift your hips a little more. Even if you need to bend your knees. Oh, look at that. Look at that back. That's nice.
Jennifer, can you talk a moment about which way our elbows should be bent?
Well, I mean, full expression, go ahead and set your knees down. Full expression of down dog, the insides of your elbows face each other, the eyes of your elbows. They face each other when you come up and your arms are bent. So if you have your arms bent slightly, then that's an easier rotation. But if, just like when we're on our hands and knees, if you need to adjust your hands and that's not happening, don't force anything, but try it, right? So go ahead and take a peek at your arms. And with them bent a little bit, right? The insides of your elbows should be facing each other, right? Good, and then see if you can lift up from there and maintain. So if you tend to hyperextend, then you kind of have to work a little more. Yeah, there you go. Drop your head, look back towards your knees. Awesome, see if you can lift your hips a little bit more. So lift them by pressing back towards your legs a little more. So release your heels down. Good. And just, yeah, there we go.
My legs.
Yeah, the hamstrings.
Yeah.
They get warmed up eventually. We're not like, there we go. Karen, that's great.
She's like,
Yep.
winner, winner, chicken dinner.
All right, and then go ahead and sit your feet down. Awesome. All right, take a breath and then slowly make your way up to standing at the top of your mat. So when we were on our hands and knees and we were doing our spinal balance, what did you notice, what happened for you? So when you first went into it, before I said engage your core, versus when you engaged your core. Do you remember?
When you said take the breath in and imagine it's kind of sucking your belly button, it seemed, for me anyway, a little bit easier.
Okay. So the thing with that is it doesn't happen with the breath. Like in yoga, when we inhale, our belly expands. You can still maintain an engagement and breathe. Don't worry about that.
Okay.
But I don't
Seemed easier.
recommend, but that's good that you remember to take the navel back toward the spine, but you just don't want to connect it with the breath.
Okay, that was physical therapy. She made
Yeah.
me walk around.
And there's like Pilates is actually the opposite breathing. Do you have a question?
Yeah, what did you mean by that? When you pull your navel back and don't connect it with your breath?
Because when you inhale in yoga, your belly expands.
Okay, so
So
not pull
she
it
had
back
it
when
connected
you're
with the
inhaling.
inhale and pulling
Okay.
it back.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so don't even worry about that.
Okay.
Because that could be like a retraining thing.
Okay.
But just remember in yoga, when you inhale, your belly expands. Because you're working with the diaphragm, and the diaphragm works with the nervous system. So we want to bring the nervous system into the relaxation response. That's like one of the most important things of our whole entire yoga practice. But yeah, navel back toward the spine. So that helps with that. What did you notice in your body when you made that engagement?
Tightened up.
It helped it tighten everything up. And then what
So my
happened?
balance was better.
Your balance was, but yeah,
Right,
exactly.
right, yeah.
And could you feel more extension
Yeah.
through that back leg? Did it take pressure for those of you that have like any kind of knee issue or even the spine thing? Did it help to kind of take any of that pressure away because that you refocused the energy? Okay. So that's the key too. Just like those small things that you wouldn't even think of, they help to just redirect from those points of pressure, right, which would be the knee or even the low back because you have the leg extended out behind you. But when you engage your core, it secures other muscles and helps to just like kind of suck that energy up to that one point and then lets it radiate out from there.
Balance
Right.
issue.
Exactly, yeah, so you're radiating out from the core. Okay, so we're all at the tops of our mat. We're gonna work a little bit with forward folding. So very, very slow movement with the back stuff, especially since it's all the lumbar. Very important to maintain the core engagement when folding. That is what protects our low back. And even when you have like hip flexor, like it protects the hip flexors, it protects the psoas, which is a muscle that connects from our spine down to the hip flexor and the low back. So the core does so much. And I'm not talking about having six-pack abdominal, like that doesn't even matter. We're talking about the deep core muscles, which is that feeling of drawing the navel back toward the spine. So I'm gonna have you close your eyes here. And we're just gonna work on finding that core engagement. So go ahead and, not with your breath, but just draw the navel back toward the spine. Squeeze it as far back as you can. And see if you can even feel it lift, your navel lift a little bit toward the heart. And just hold it there until it feels like it's working. You know, you might start to heat up a little bit. It's our internal fire. Relax your shoulders and your face with it. Good, and then let go of that tension. Take a deep breath. You feel the difference? Okay, so now when you do it, this time, you're going to engage the core. I want you to focus on your low back. I just want you to feel what that does for your low back. And it's subtle, but those subtleties become very important in your yoga practice. Right? Those little things, the little muscles, the little sensations that we become aware of, that's where actually our intuition lies. So we're connecting with that. So close your eyes again. And again, not connected to your breath, but draw the navel back toward the spine. So squeeze it way back, and notice that you can still breathe, even though you have this core engagement. So you squeeze, this is really good for your digestive system as well. Navel pulls up a little bit, relax your shoulders, your face, you're focusing at your low back. And just notice what you feel there with that engagement. And then go ahead and release it. Take a breath. What did you notice? You notice?
Oh, my back just tightens right up and
Yeah.
just kind of all connects it together.
Exactly, yeah. So
Right here?
what else did you
I
notice?
noticed right here that it was tight.
Right.
Yeah.
So you felt those muscles
Yeah.
engaged. Awesome. All the way from the front.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty amazing. So you can see how it supports the low back, right? And the importance of that when you stand up to do your forward folds in yoga, which are something that you visit in many classes. So it's important to understand that structure of the core, even if the teacher doesn't remind you to do it. Now you know, hopefully we're like, ingraining this into core, in yoga, and just think that's kind of like your sunshine. That's where you radiate out from. Everything radiates out from there. So we're gonna come to hip width. Let's see where your hips are. They are not that wide. All right, yeah, so if that feels comfortable for you, then keep it there. Betty Ann. Yeah. It's pretty much just straight down. All right, good. All right, so we're gonna inhale here. On your inhale, on your exhale, find that core engagement. So you can find it on the exhale, bend your knees, and then start to roll down into a fold and maintain that core engagement and really bend your knees. See how far you can go. We're moving slow. Remember, transitions are just as important as the posture. You're coming into a fold. Keep the knees bent and the core strong. Great. And if you can, slowly drop your head. Don't tuck it in, don't tuck your chin in towards your chest, but just drop your head. You're gonna feel those hamstrings. Good. Now, keep the core engaged. And remember the spinal movement that we did in cat-cow? So we always move one vertebrae at a time when we're rolling. So inhale, keep the core strong, and inhale all the way up. It might take you 2 breaths, that's okay. Just keep it strong. Big inhale. Rolling it all the way up. Good. This time, as you come up, when you get there, take your time. Reach your arms up toward the ceiling. Big reach. And always mindful of your neck. If you can take your gaze up toward the ceiling, go for it. If it's not working for you, then you keep it straight ahead. See if you can drop your shoulders here. Good. Now notice where your spine is. Find a neutral spine. Again, so if your hips are pressed way forward, then you want to take them back, tuck your tailbone a little. Think about lengthening the spine and stacking the ribs. So we're not sticking the chest way out, we're not rounding the back, we're just finding neutral. That's one of the hardest postures to find. Let's see if we can straighten our arms out a little bit more and inhale. Good, lift your toes. Can you lift your toes? Engage the core. On your exhale, swing your arms back by your sides this time. Keep your knees bent and find your fold. Keep the core strong as you come all the way down. When you get there, bring your hands to your shins. Good. Keep your knees bent if you need to. And then inhale and come up halfway. So you find a halfway fold, looking forward just a bit. So think about finding that flat back. We work a lot with neutral spine. Good. So if you can, drop your chest toward the floor a little bit and pull the shoulders back. Awesome. Let's do our belly breath here. So let's inhale and let your belly hang. Just feel it fill with air. On the exhale, slowly draw the navel back toward the spine. That big squeeze. So you feel all that support. Inhale. And exhale. Good. Let's bend the knees a little more. Take your hands to your hips. Keep the core strong. Look forward. Let's inhale, rising up. Good, reach it up. You okay? Awesome. Does it? Yay! All right, exhale, hands out, heart center. All right, so when we come here to heart center, to work on the shoulders a little bit, I mean, this is definitely a place of contemplation and prayer and, you know, on the spiritual level, but we can also work on the shoulders a little bit because we always want to strengthen those. So we take the elbows out nice and wide, drop the shoulders and press your hands firmly together. So you'll feel your shoulders engage with that, just that little movement. And I always dig my thumbs right into the center of my chest because that's kind of like an acupressure place. That's called the Sea of Compassion. So when you do that, you're gonna find, here, let's do that. Why not? We'll bring the spiritual side into it because I can't even help myself. So you find a little sore spot. You're feeling a little sore spot there on the sternum. That's how you know you hit that sweet spot. So you massage it a little bit, and energetically it helps to open that compassion for yourself, most importantly, right? We send compassion to ourselves, and that's how we're able to have compassion for other people. So this is a great point to practice. While you're finding your neutral spine, you're also massaging your sea of compassion and opening. So energetically what happens here is there's 108 points of energy that converge at the heart center, right? And they run all throughout your body, so you're helping to open those up as well. So when you move through your physical practice, over time it becomes a little bit easier, and you don't even need to know why. But it's just from this little movement that we're opening. All right, so let's inhale and reach the arms up again. So as you reach your arms up, what are your shoulders doing? Can you drop them down away from your ears? And then how much can you straighten your arms, right? Just these little movements. Good, maybe look up toward the ceiling. Spread your fingers out wide. Good, now bend your knees, engage your core. On an exhale, start to fold. Lift your toes. Drop your arms down when you need to, especially if you start to feel pressure in your back. Take yourself as far into your fold as you can, small movements. So you drop your head really slow. You see, maybe you could straighten your legs out a little bit more, but we don't force anything. You just check in with your body constantly. Good. On an inhale, take your hands to your shins and come up to that halfway fold. Looking forward, again, nice and slow. Every movement is really, really slow. Think about a neutral spine here, finding a flat back, so you want to pull the heart forward. And again, the core is nice and strong. And then we're just going to make one little shift here. See if you can shift your weight a little bit more back towards your heels and your hips. And engage the core. I'm just going to keep saying it over and over again. We're breathing. Good. Hands to your hips. Keep the core strong. Keep your toes lifted, or at least that weight shifted back. And then inhale, rising up. So it's nice and even feel your glutes working for you as you come up like this. Good. Reach your arms up. Keep the shoulders down. Let's exhale, hands to heart center. So again, find that little spot that over the session, the class session, it shouldn't feel as sore by the end. That's the little secret that not everyone knows. Now you guys know. How's everyone feeling? Good. Questions with the folding at all? Because you sometimes tend to do a lot of that throughout a class as you move through sun salutations. Okay.
Are you keeping it flat, or are you like?
It depends on how your low back feels, right?
Okay.
So if it's feeling a little bit tender, then you always keep the core engaged no matter if you're rolling up or you're maintaining a flat back. But if it's feeling tender, then knees always stay bent and roll up. Like if you have your period, then it's good to have a more gentle practice because sometimes the low back gets like achy and stuff. Yeah. So then you would want to do that. And if you're working on strengthening, if that's important to you, if you're working on strengthening the core and the back, then maybe try 1 or 2 folds with a flatter back. So it's like that, you just have to constantly gauge where you're at and see what works for your practice each time. I just thought what I wanted to do next, and now I don't remember. So we did our folding. Oh, I do remember now. Okay. Does everybody have blocks? So grab your blocks, and you're gonna take them, does anybody need them? No, okay. You're gonna bring them down beside each foot like this, so they're actually up against the foot, the outsides of each foot. You're standing hip width, and even though you're doing this, we're still using all of our methods, so the core is strong. We're gonna just come into a fold here. Good. Good, bend your knees. Yep, as much as you need to. So find comfort here. Find, not comfort actually, find the edge of your practice, which is that perfect place between maybe a little bit of discomfort and like, yes, I have this posture. So whatever adjustments you have to make to find that place, go for it. What is your spine doing? What's your core doing? Could you go a little bit deeper into your hamstrings? Good, and then once you find it, and on an inhale, go ahead and step your left foot back behind you, way back behind you. So we're coming into a lunge. Good, so you might need to move, I would move up on the mat. There we go. So in your lunge, that front knee is bent, but if you're a knee person, you're gonna be ultra mindful of how that knee feels. So if you need to keep your hips lifted a little bit more, then you keep your hips lifted. So when you're in your lunge, just try to keep your head lifted, no strain on the neck, but the head is lifted. We kind of mean business here. Good. And if you're feeling good in your lunge, then you can straighten that back leg out a little more. Maybe you can sink your hips down. What's your core doing? Engage. All right. So I'm going to teach you one of the most important things that is almost always overlooked in yoga classes. I'm going to have you set your back knee down. Mindful, if you are a knee person, you might need to come to your hands and knees first. There you go. That was a great transition. So now can you walk your block, I'm just going to have you do this. Walk your blocks forward a little bit and see if you can scoot that right foot forward a little bit. I just want you to be able to sink, don't sink down into your hips yet, way down into them, but I want you to be in a place where you're about to go sink down into your hips. Okay, so let's lift the hips first. So lean back a little bit in the hips. Good, and then very slowly lower just a little bit, just until you feel a little bit of stretch right here on that left leg into the hip, not too much. Okay, so I didn't tell you to do anything. There. Now the most important thing that you can do is engage your legs and engage, what leg did we have back? Left leg? Left. Engage that left glute, right? So squeeze your butt, squeeze your legs, and squeeze your core. And then sink down. Maintain that engagement and sink into it. Oh yeah, it just opens up a whole new world, right? But what that does is it protects your hip flexor. You'll never overstretch your hip flexor. It's one of the longest healing periods if you overstretch a hip flexor. If you don't find that engagement, then there's that potential to overstretch the hip flexor. And you're looking at like a year of horrible pain. I overstretched both of mine. That's how I know that. Okay, so let's take it back. Awesome. Now walk your blocks back. I'm going to have you do a little more core work. My knee people, be very mindful here. But if you can, lift your foot and take that knee back. Awesome. Now engage your core and go ahead and step the left foot forward. So this is where blocks come in handy because a lot of the times in class you'll go through sun salutations, varying levels of sun salutations, but even the gentle ones, use your blocks for your lunges, so that way you can start to feel what it's like to step the foot forward and back. And you're already using your core so much that it will just help strengthen it even more. All right, so same thing now, engage that right glute or both glutes, your core, your legs. So when I say engage your legs, it's almost like you're trying to squeeze your legs together, even though that's not going to happen because you're sinking down and then sink down from there. Good, so everything is nice and tight. Good. All right, if you're feeling pretty good here and you think that you can go further, now typically, traditionally, in yoga we keep this front leg at a 90-degree angle, but I see people break the rules, like really well-known yoga teachers that break the rules, so if it feels okay on your knee, then go for it, but just be mindful of that. And again, maintain that engagement. So if you want to go a little further here, see how it feels to take your hands to your front leg while you're sinking down. So all those muscles are still engaged, and see if you can lengthen the spine a little more. Good. So keep those muscles strong. There's a lot happening. If you start to build tension in your face, this is a good reminder, let it go. And just focus on what actually needs to be engaged. And if you want to go a little further here, see if you can reach your arms up. Keep those muscles strong. There you go. So there's a little bit of balance here too, right? And the core helps to maintain that balance. Good, let's inhale. On your exhale, go ahead and set your hands back down. And then again, if you can, lift your foot, take that knee back. What do you need to do here to relieve tension in the body? That's what could you do? With everything that you've learned, you have your cat-cow, you have your spinal balance.
Swing your hips
Yeah, you
back
can swing your
and
hips from side to side. You know, all these things. Awesome. And you don't have to keep your hands on the blocks. Unless you want to.
I'm a rule follower. You didn't say take them off.
That's right, that's true. All right, so we're gonna work our way into child's pose. So for my knee people, right, you wanna be, and the back people, like you wanna be mindful because it can put pressure on your knees, doesn't have to. And then it is like a spinal extension. So every posture, right, no matter what the teacher is saying, the transition is just as important as the posture. And a lot of the times teachers will say, take child's pose. And everybody just goes into the posture without really taking their time. So when you go into it, if your knees bother you, if it hurts you, to sit back like this, you're gonna keep your knees lifted and touch your toes and walk your hands out and find where it's comfortable for you to lower down. So you might stack blocks. You want to be able to rest your forehead somewhere. So I recommend stacking blocks if your forehead doesn't reach the mat. And you have the option of taking your knees out wide or keeping them together. If you can sit back on your heels and feel comfortable, then go ahead and do that, and I'll show you how to come into child's pose. And we'll come into it with the legs together. So you sit back on your heels and you kind of try to maintain that connection. And then from there, it's like you're laying down your spine and you walk your hands out. So it's one vertebrae at a time, you're walking out. If your forehead doesn't come down, use a block, stack your fists. If you come into it and your knees bother you or your back, then you lift your hips up a little bit toward the ceiling. And this is a great resting posture where you can come back and regain your breath if you start to get out of breath. And just another place of contemplation, because your forehead is meeting something, either the mat or the block. And so that wakes up the energy at the third eye, which reconnects you with your body, your breath, and your seat of intuition. So you reconnect with your body to understand what it needs for you to flow through the rest of your practice. And your arms, if your shoulders are bugging you, then maybe you take your arms down by your legs. Just make adjustments to whatever feels good. If you're feeling awesome in child's pose and you want to feel active, then you can walk your fingertips toward the top of your mat and straighten your arms out. And maybe even lift your elbows if you're feeling ultra active. Good. And you're breathing. So think about your spine is extending. You're breathing into your belly, in and out through your nose. On your inhale, your belly expands, and it's so nice when you have your knees out wide in your child's pose and you feel your belly expand. And if you've had kids like me, your belly just kind of hangs, and it's a relief because no one can see it hanging, and it feels really good just to let it hang. I'm sorry, but it just does. And so you breathe. And a lot of times in practice, your teacher will ask you to have an intention for class, right? So when you come to child's pose, or you come to that point where your hands are together at the top of the mat, this is a good time to come back to your intention and remember why you showed up. So we didn't really go over that today, but just take a moment and remember why you showed up. Or maybe you thought of something new since you got here. Yep, that's perfect. And if it starts to bother you, come into whatever position works. And it's always safe for you to make those changes in a class. If everybody's still in child's pose and you need to sit up, you sit up. Now I'm going to have you slowly come up to a seated position. Good. And then go ahead and come to the top of your mat in that seated position. So you have enough room behind you to lie back. And I'll have you extend your legs out in front. And I don't know which way is easier to come down onto your back if you have your feet planted or your legs extended out. But another way to work with the core, that again happens in almost every yoga class when you lower down to do some work on your back, is you lower down. So you can try it with your feet planted. I think this is probably the more gentle way, or you can try it with your legs extended. Let's take the arms out in front and keep your gaze at your toes the whole time. All right, and when you lower down, don't do it yet, but you're gonna get to this point right about here where you feel like you wanna flop, right? So this is where you really find that engagement like we did when we were in our fold. And you kind of tuck your tailbone, right? So you're tilting your pelvis, and see if you can control it all the way down. And that really gets to that key muscle group for the rest of it. It's like one simple movement that changes so much within your practice if you try that every time you come down onto your back. So arms come out, so your feet are either planted or legs are extended. If your legs are extended, keep your gaze at your toes. Let's inhale. And on your exhale, you're rounding your back and rolling down one vertebrae at a time. And I recommend doing this as slow and as controlled as you can. And try to hold it through that spot where you just want to flop. I'm going to bring that flop in again. Ball on it. Okay. Awesome. And then give yourself a big stretch. Reach your arms overhead. If it's comfortable for you to straighten your legs out and point your toes, go for it. Now go ahead and plant your feet on the mat. A lot of the times at the end of a yoga class, your teacher will say, bring your knees in towards your chest. So before you do that, remember to move slow and be mindful of your body and use your core. And see where it takes you if you were to take your knees in towards your chest. Great, so some of you are holding behind your knees, which is perfect. Some of you have your arms wrapped around. The only thing I say here, I don't recommend crossing your ankles, so keep your feet together. If it's available to you to wrap your arms all the way around your legs, go for it. If not, then maintain whatever hold you have. Good. And feel your breath here. Keep your head relaxed onto the mat. Inhaling in through the nose, feel your belly expand so that way you feel it touch your thighs. Good, if you need to do one knee at a time, that's perfect. On your exhale, if you can, squeeze your legs in a little bit tighter. In towards your body, good, and then hold that there. Inhale again. Exhale, squeeze. Great, use your core And then very slowly release your feet back to the mat. Maybe do 1 foot at a time. So again, you're just listening to what your body needs the whole entire time. And then go ahead and rock, when you get there, rock your knees from side to side with your feet on the mat. Good. And this is kind of nice when you're rocking your knees. So this is an option. If your teacher has you go into a twist and your back is not feeling a twist, you can always rock your knees from side to side. And then also, if you're doing this, see how it feels to take your feet out to about the width of your mat and rock them from side to side. So you get your twist and you get your release in your low back, but it's not as intense as a twist can be. And you're breathing, so inhale one way, exhale other. Now I'm going to have everyone slow it down so you can actually connect your breath with the movement. So let your breath, the speed of your breath, dictate the movement. So you inhale to one side, exhale to the other side. Your breath. So if you're moving fast, if you're breathing that fast, that might not be great. Good. And we'll come back to center. When you, at the end of a class, when you come into deep relaxation, this is another time to check in with your body. So if your low back is feeling tender, typically you keep your feet planted on the mat. You take your feet out a little wider than your hips and let your knees drop together. So that way you don't have to do any work. And your arms come down, so yeah, you got it. If your back feels good, then you can just straighten your legs out on the mat. And you always have permission to make movements at any time. So just because your teacher says to do something doesn't mean you're stuck there. Make whatever adjustments you need as you grow your practice. The discipline is already in the showing up. Okay, so be easy and kind and gentle with yourself as you build your practice. And in deep relaxation, this is your time to just let go. This is when your body integrates your practice. And if your mind is wandering, that's okay. If you don't feel like keeping your eyes closed, that's okay. You just keep a gentle gaze up toward the ceiling. If you are open to receiving energy, then your palms stay turned up. So you kind of take your arms out wide enough so it's comfortable to have the palms turned up. And if you're feeling a little, like you want to stay like a hermit that day, we all feel like that sometimes, then you place your hands on your belly and you keep your energy in. This is a place of allowing. Let your feet relax and flop open. And if you can move your shoulders a little further down from your ears, that's always nice to create that space. One of the most, if not the most important part of your physical practice. So if you feel like running out of the room, I would say this is where you bring in that discipline and stay. Because over time, it will probably become your favorite part of the practice. Kindness and compassion with wherever you are and whatever you felt today as you move through some of these foundational postures and learning how to use your body in an effective way. Kind and compassion, kindness and compassion. We were never trained to use our bodies in a holistic way, to understand our minds. And it's never too late to start. So the importance of you showing up today, if it was your first time, is unbelievable. And so important. Sorry. So just take a few deep breaths here. I'll clean up for you. And was that your mat or was that? Okay. Yes, definitely. That's on being sitting. So you just kind of wiggle your fingers and your toes. Roll wrists and ankles. And every time you want to be supportive in your movements at this point. So you're going to gently roll over onto your right side, curl up into a little ball there. So Shavasana is corpse pose. That's what that means, is corpse. And so after we come out of it, right, we're starting to make our way out of it, it's your rebirth. So every single time you practice yoga, you have a new beginning. And the first Yoga Sutra is yoga begins now. And so even when you first start your practice, it's a new beginning. Every time you take a breath, every time you start to make one movement in your postures and out of your postures, all of it is always that new beginning and that beginner's mind. And then after, like I said, your Shavasana, your corpse pose, when you slowly and supportively bring yourself up to seated, which I'll have you do now, in the most supportive way that you can. Support your body as you come up. This is your new beginning, your rebirth. And normally here you keep your eyes closed and you would om and do all kinds of fun things. But I already went over time because I could spend a full, probably an entire weekend on all of this stuff. Any questions before I let you go?
Question and statement.
Yeah.
I have found my exercise.
Yay. Good. Was this helpful?
Yeah, very much so.
Good. We didn't do much, but we did a lot. Right? It's like those little subtleties that matter. That's really what I wanted to get into your head, are those little things that matter so much, and just listening to what your body needs over and over again. And every single time you show up on your mat, you will learn something new about your body and your mind. And you're just, I guess my wish for you is that you stay in awe of your body versus beating yourself up at all, because it's just not worth it. We got to change the thought patterns and create the new pathways in the brain, because our bodies are amazing, no matter what we're enduring physically or emotionally. And there's always that capacity for healing on so many different levels. So it's just the showing up. Well, it was great spending this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Get good, too relaxed.
The classes as to what would be next for somebody who is like, how do you
I recommend that everyone everyone starts with a Take It Easy Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's kind of foundations, it's easy on the joints, it's slow, it's not necessarily a flow or anything like that. And you'll be reminded of like a lot of what we did in here.
Okay.
So, and then I teach, I don't know, I teach on Wednesday, 9 a.m., 4:30, and Thursday, 6 p.m.
Okay.
So, and if you ever want to do any private sessions, yeah, I would almost feel like,
Excuse me, I'm so
My
sorry.
work better.
just to, because I would want to work more one-on-one with you, just so you can figure out more, like we would do more, obviously,
Right.
to figure out what you can do, where your points are, yeah.
So maybe, perhaps maybe like the Tuesday class.
Yep.
And then like the second day.
Yep.
Maybe like a one-on-one private
Yep.
session. I feel
That would be
That
awesome.
would be okay.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be forever.
Yeah,
Because,
exactly.
like, you know, classes
Yeah,
are free.
right.
What is your goal? Is your goal to get back to running?
I don't know.
You don't know.
Isn't that weird?
Okay, I love that.
Yeah, it's very, very, yeah, it's been, it's been an interesting journey, so.
Which is a good thing.
That it goes back, it just brings me back to like the roots of like my nutrition, because very traditional nutrition. Like, what happened was my pain doctor wanted to get all of it, I was like, not, like, refused. So went back, started like looking at like, what else would I do? So my acupuncturist that I saw, he's been working with me, I'm doing the CBD work instead. I mean, I have minimal pain over the last, when I say minimal, I live in it like 4 or 5, but I was like for the last 3 months and then like at an 8
Yeah.
on a good day. I was like, what is this? Just like not, but I haven't been back to work. So I'm really struggling just like getting back to work. But I think it brings back my whole practice. I was like, my nutrition practice is very holistic. My body, and I used running just because that was my outlet for emotion. But the more I read, the more I think. So I don't know if my practice really will again. I honestly am like, I don't know if I'll ever run again or what I'll find. What I used in running, will I find it on that, you know?
Yeah,
So I'm really, so I'm really focusing inward, trying to learn as much as I did your sound thing on Friday. And it was right after acupuncture, and I had to like go home and journal about it. It was like the most, I was talking to Taylor about it, I said, I had the most feeling like I couldn't place a mat on the mat during the morning. I had to like literally have one leg up, I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like, I haven't been in this much pain in like years.
Wow.
And then I felt amazing the next day. And it's very impressive. So I'm like, all right, my so I laughed. And no, I'm not. And I'm like, no, so that's what I'm talking about. Like, I really want to. I'm nervous because I can't just jump into a class. I can't injure myself.
I wouldn't even And then also, you know, I don't know, so it sounds like you're pretty holistic. I used to do a lot of work with people like to release the trauma from the cells, like a spiritual kind of, I hate the word coaching, but ish. Mixed with but anyway, it has worked wonders for, I can't, like, so many people. Yeah.
So maybe we can, I can send you an email and
Totally.
touch base, but maybe on a different level, like kind of where I'm at today. I'd like to probably come to, I mean, I'm out of work.
Yeah, and actually,
They want me to come back. I know I'm going to the Bahamas.
okay,
I
well,
saw
when you
it.
get back,
You're meditation. Can I do it after the following
oh
week?
yeah, it's just a weekly thing that just starts maybe.
I know. I'm like, oh, I wonder if you had to be in the whole thing. Okay,
It's
good.
not like a series, it's just something that I want, because I teach the 9 a.m. and I always want to go longer meditation and everybody that comes to class wants to, so we're just going to go from here across the hall and do an hour meditation.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but I'll definitely be here for the week after. No, I was going to cancel my trip. It was with the kids and everything. So that's why I was like, just go. You don't have to do anything. So what that's what I'll do.
Yeah, get out of 4 days, but I think for the, actually, work really close.
Oh, well, that's good.
I would give it a try. Just use your blocks, use, you know,
It's on the floor.
Thank you, Ida. I'll see you soon, okay?
Tonight.
Yes, I think you might. Good, okay. I mean, give it a whirl, because at least, like, I'll be there to
Right.